I've always felt different. I've always seen things, but when I tried to express them as a child, I was always told to ignore it.
There were people that I didn't know that came to me and said, I have this message that I keep getting that I have to deliver to you.
All of a sudden, out of the shadows, a homeless man just jumped right in front of me. And he said, I'm a soul just like you.
I love it.
I wanted to understand the universe and who and what we are and what are we doing here.
Well, we're all part of this amazing soul wave tapping into each other.
This was a major life changer.
You are a light. You have helped me a ton. Thank you.
You've given me the courage to live more from my soul.
Millions of people are awakening. So wake up with Michele Meiche. Be pleased to hear the best-selling authors and experts in the fields of cutting-edge self-help, personal growth, metaphysics, and spirituality. The soul path of awakening. Understand what living awake is.
I had myself muted. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Awakenings with Michele Meiche. It's great to have you here. Those of you that are new, welcome. I hope you feel comfortable, feel at home, and that you will decide to subscribe. Speaking of that, subscribing, thank you so much, those of you that have subscribed to Soul Insights and Tarot, my YouTube channel, and also Awakenings with Michele Meiche podcast on YouTube. I really appreciate it. And also want to thank those of you that have left 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And I hear a lot of creators say this, and I so get it. If you don't like something about the podcast or want to, just email me, awakeningspodcast@gmail.com instead of leave. Now, I'm not saying anybody's left nasty reviews. Some people have said, back a few years ago, I hear Michele making tea in the background or the sound. But that is the podcast. That is Blog Talk Radio. That is the quality is how it is. And I want it to be like a hangout. I'm getting my tea when I had Yoshi, my dog, that I love so much. She's on the other side now, though. Sometimes she would bark. I would have to, when she was transitioning, she was convalescing for almost a year and a half. I would need to take care of her and do whatever. I like that. I mean, that was one of the things I did like about the pandemic was that whether it's podcasts or newscasts or regular TV shows even had to have Zoom with the dog walking in and out. People didn't dress up as much. But I like that style. I have never liked the overproduced style, even in my music, although I can appreciate it. And I know I have a lot of DJ and musician friends, and they're fanatical about sound. The adjusting the sound, the type of speaker, the type of wires you use. I mean, I get it. That's a thing, but that's not my thing. So anyway, I just asked because I really want to expand. I've been doing this podcast for quite a long time, and I don't ask for much or anything really in return. And I know it's usually people that don't, aren't regulars or whatever. But I don't know, it's so interesting to me about people that are really creative. People that are really creative tend to want to support and inspire, and have less kind of, I don't know, I guess they're less trolly, I guess I would say. So I would say if you feel like if you are a troll or on the trolley side, tap into your creativity, It takes a lot to do things, in this world, and a lot of us are balancing a lot of things, So anyway, I'm always really appreciative, I guess because I always see behind the scenes the life that I've living and have lived in my past. I've been exposed to a lot of types of people, a lot of different kinds of situations. And it always amazes me how much more goes into something than what people ever would imagine. And even something that looks so simple it's like, oh my God, whether it's learning or schooling or the knack, or somebody is balancing or managing so many things, in the background, or they're sick, they're dealing with, some kind of chronic illness or something, or recuperating, or their marriage is crumbling, or they're in a highly abusive relationship and they just have to show up. So we really never know what it takes for someone to do what they're doing and what their process is. I always like to think about that, when people show up, even when I get critical of people. Now, I'm not really the type, except on this podcast, because I do to call people out, unless I see things going down like a direction that is unhealthy, or harming people. If I see something within my related field, then that's part of what I do. As a commentator in that aspect, I will say, which leads me into our topic today, I'll be getting to that, then I will speak up. But if someone is trying to do something self-expressive or creative, I always just think, okay, just let them try and find the good in what they're doing and focus on that, unless you want to have a one-on-one conversation. Because the best way to get something better is that text or that email or that one-on-one conversation of, have you tried this or have you tried that or what about this? The trolling really doesn't work. Most creators, dents your ego for a bit and then you just move on, because it isn't really done in the spirit of, hey, I really want to help you, or I like what you do and I want to help you make it better, Or if the trolly ones, what are you doing? How about you offering to help? Or what are you doing to help humanity or the world or yourself? That's what I would say. Anyway, gang, I digress, but I've just been watching some YouTube videos, and I've just heard some creators. There's a reason it's called content creation, and I've heard some of the creators say, and it does help. It's like getting those subscriptions, people subscribing or liking, all those things help, obviously, the algorithm, but they help keep the inspiration going. And I get it. If people are in dead-end jobs or they feel their life isn't going anywhere, you could be a bit snarky and maybe instead of looking at yourself, people want to, burst somebody else's bubble, pop their balloon, so to speak. But it's just interesting. I've been watching some videos, and the creators are saying the same, and I'm like, gosh, it really is a thing. Some have even said, just leave 5 stars or don't review at all, because they're trying to do something in the world. And I know, here's the deal. The bottom line is, and this is, I think, what happened also when we look at what happened in 2020, right? When people don't feel empowered in their life, they look to take other people down. That's their little level of power. Like, that's what the cancel culture is all about. It's usually people that feel very insecure, or they feel, life has done them wrong, or they're not recognized enough. And it's really from a victim mentality. To try to take someone down or, deflate them is really coming from that victim mentality. Anyway, we're going to be seeing a lot more of that, because I feel like people with the soul energy coming through and us moving more individually and as a collective into soul alignment, we get these lower level or lower octaves of soul expression, right? And you've heard me talk about it on the podcast. Everything has, a low octave, mid, and high, and it's all contrast. It's all needed. Just like in music, we need some distortion or dissonance. Dissonance creates change. It's just how much. I mean, we're never going to get 100% resonance or harmonization in anything, because to persist in life, there has to be some dissonance. Otherwise, it's as it goes. It's subsumed back into the universe. And you can do this, you can test this out by getting a metronome. I used to show this in my meditation courses I would teach. at Agape Spiritual Center. It was shown to me a long time ago, so I wasn't like the brainy one that figured it out. But I think like in the mid-90s, one of my teachers, I saw it somewhere. So if you take a metronome and you turn it on, it has to be the stick one. I don't know if it works digitally. And if you clap, so in other words, if something has 100% harmonization or 100% resonance, that means it's totally duplicated. It will disappear, or you won't hear. It'll just, right? So you take the metronome, you turn it on, and it's my metronome sound. Can you hear it? And you clap, and if you clap at the exact same time that the metronome clicks, you will hear no sound. It's pretty trippy. Pretty trippy, gang. Pretty trippy. Anyway, let's see what's in the chat. Oh, and by the way, if you want to listen by phone, 347-539-5122 is the phone number. 347-539-5122. And if you have a question or a comment or you want a reading, please press 1. Let's see, yeah, and then we will be getting to questions and readings and all of that. I just want to touch on something because I've had a lot of questions about this. I have on and off over the years. But lately, people have been talking to me a lot, whether they're, my personal private clients, workshop, a Patreon. A couple people have left comments on my Soul Insights and Tarot. I'm trying to move out of fear. I'm not manifesting because of fear. And I really want to clear up a misnomer because I know a lot of people right now are going into high gear with manifesting, and which just simply comes from the French word manifest, to make appear, right? To make visible what it is you dream of or you want. A lot of people are reinventing themselves, their life, recreating, however you have a bigger vision, however you want to put it. And that is really the call right now in the universe, is for this recreation at a new level, at a more soul-connected level. And a lot of people bump up into the idea of worry thoughts and fear. And I can tell you, as a therapist and as a hypnotherapist, a counselor and a hypnotherapist, as a metaphysician and an esotericist, occultist, a spiritualist, I have a lot of training. It's your fleeting thoughts, because there's thoughts that go around all the time. They can be debilitating. Chronic, divisive, or negative thoughts can affect your health. Chronic, that's the key, chronic mental, emotional states. Not the fleeting or a depression here and there, or you get down or you get depressed. It's totally natural. Same as fear. Fear is a natural, human state of being. Not even human, just human, animal. It's really, it's also a way of navigating. It's a way of interpreting. It's a protection. Now, I've said this before, but I really want to kind of round back into this so that people are not wasting their time trying to not think whatever thoughts they're thinking, and also not to get into, worrying about fear that you're not going to manifest what you want, or you're going to manifest some negative experience, because you have fear, or for some people, a lot of people, fear of poverty or fear of not having enough. And I've seen this also a lot with readers on YouTube, and that's another reason it's coming up for me, because I'm like, oh, God, that's not the reason. Those of you that are tarot readers, it's like getting the 8 of Swords, and people say, oh, you're restricting yourself. But no, 8 of Swords can sometimes be you're in a restrictive situation. Sometimes you are in a restrictive situation, and it's no quote-unquote fault of your own. It's life circumstances. It's what's happening in life. Because what it does is it skews life, the interpretation that if everything is going as you want it and you're riding a high, then you're higher vibrational. You're high vibe. You're the you're the ish. You're the man. You're the woman. You're the boss. You have it all down. You're doing the spiritual thing or the successful thing. And on this earth plane, not only we live, it's contrast. There's highs and lows. That you're going to have times that are challenging or difficult. You're going to have tragedy. There is going to be death, folks. Things are going to die. People are going to die. Something's going to end and something's going to begin. So that skewed thinking actually keeps you from using the natural cycles, whether you want to call it, seasons, your biorhythms of when you're up, when you're down, when is the best time for you to do your work, and that could change over time. I know for me, I'm finding if I am not getting things done earlier in the day, it's not happening. And I used to be a major night owl, and maybe I will again. I can be a night owl, but I'm not wanting to work. So you have to kind of find your own narrative. What's your own story of how things, unfold? So I would say, heal the fear, because we're always manifesting. It doesn't matter. We're always creating. We're always reproducing. We're always regenerating. The level you want to experience from within your situation or circumstance is up to you. But that it doesn't mean that if you have fears of lack or not enough, that you are not going to then manifest. That is such a... And I got to tell you, some of you already know this. I was a model, a very successful model, actress. I've had a couple of consulting. I had a business. I have been around extremely successful people, whether multimillionaire, billionaires, aristocrats. A lot of them have a lot of fear. And that is what actually got them in gear, manifesting, a fear of not having enough or not having enough from their kids, or I don't want to live like my parents or grandparents. Some people I knew, their parents and grandparents were, in Auschwitz. They came up from the streets. It was that fear of not having enough. Now, I'm not saying generate fear, but what I want to share with you is trying to get rid of fear is a trap, and it will just keep you in perpetuating doubt and self-criticism. And that's what's going to eat up your energy. That book years ago, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, that really, it sounds like a stupid little book or cliche, but it's true. It's like stage fright. As a hypnotherapist, I've worked with a lot of actors, and A-list actors, celebrities that household names. And they would tell me how they had stage fright, or, I'm doing that film, and now I'm doing, a play on Broadway. I'm so excited, but I'm so terrified. I'm so fearful. Or I would hear how they have fear, and I'm like, you have fear? Oh, yeah, I have stage fright. Every time I go throw up. Or every time I get a script and start a movie, I get intense fear, and I throw up for a few days. And I'm like, well, what do you do? And they go, I throw up. I know it's going to happen. And then I just do it. So really, I don't know if it's to keep the little people down, so to speak, but this whole idea that you're not going to manifest because you have a few fear thoughts or doubts, or you feel like you don't have enough. Yes, tricks of be in abundance, have gratitude for the situation that you're at. All of that is really helping that mental emotional state, which is, yes, bumping up your juice, your vibration. But again, if you understand that you're manifesting no matter what, so whatever the reason is, I'm just even thinking of some of the very high-profile people I worked with, and some of them were extremely, suspicious. They were very, didn't trust a lot, which is a form of fear. And they would put, surveillance team on people, friends, business associates, girlfriends. I think they just want me for my money, or they're cheating on me. So I'm just telling you guys, just to get out of that rabbit hole. This is one of the reasons I have my Transforming Fear into Creativity. You can get it on my website or iTunes, because what you do with the fear is you begin to transform it. And that's what I have seen by people that are very high achieving, is they don't try to get rid of the fear. they use that energy. Same with the stage fright. Same with the, I remember years ago knowing, and sometimes I don't name names because I don't want to call people out that I've known privately, but a very successful skateboarder who had a really bad injury, and I'm like, I would have been just done. I don't even remember what the skateboarding trick was, but he's like, no, I'm terrified to get back up, but I just got to do it. I know if I wait too long, I won't be able to do it. So I think when we start shifting, like, okay, I'm going to have this fear. It's human, it's natural. Maybe I have a lot of it right now. Maybe I do see lack more than I do in my abundance in my situation. I'm feeling that lack. Then what does that motivate you to do? Use it as an inspiration or a motivation. You can also get my Transforming Fear into Creativity. You can go to soulplayground.life. I think it's in the Soul Path Tools or Soul Path Support. But starting, I would suggest just start changing that dialogue about what fear means to you and how are you getting caught up in trying to change the fear or a negative thought, because you can out-create it. If you just let those, whatever it is, and that's the premise of tapping. You know, there's a part in tapping, even though I have this fear, I am moving forward, even though. So trying to fix something that is a natural human state and trying to control it is actually that's what's going to diminish your energy. That's what's going to make your juice less, your soul juice, so to speak, your spiritual energy, your spiritual juice, your life force animating energy. That's what's going to deplete you, rather than using that to motivate. And I share this because there's so much misinformation about you won't attain such and such because you have fear or you're living in fear. And that's just not true. I mean, for most of the population, fear has been a great motivator. Am I suggesting that it be yours? No. But what I am suggesting is that you don't try to fight it, because how has that worked? It's probably not worked well for you. And like I said, I have definitely not only seen but experienced and been around a lot of people that are very fearful, very mean. Some of them mean, too. They're not very conscious or awake or aware. And they're living, as one of my teachers would say, metaphysical teachers, the life of Riley. They're living, quote unquote, the life. Now, is it the quality you want? Maybe not. Maybe their emotional attitude, you don't want that. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about not getting into overly being self-critical and self-judgmental because you have some kind of fear or you have a perception about your circumstances. I would say leave the perception and focus on what it is you want. Leave the perception. The perception is just going to be, unless you keep animating it. If you keep animating it, then that's where your energy is going. That's where your attention is going. And then that's where your energy is flowing. And that's why I'm suggesting overly focusing on your fears, put your energy there. Now, if it's debilitating, that's something different. I guess I work with quite a few people that have debilitating fears or phobias, which is a bit different than a fear of not having enough. As a hypnotherapist and a medical hypnotherapist, working with anxiety reaction, but what not only hypnotherapists and holistic health counselors or practitioners will tell you, but also psychologists, is that what perpetuates the anxiety reaction or the panic attack is the fear of it, and not just allowing it. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the trying to stop the panic attack or anxiety reactions. It's the trying to stop it and control it or make it not happen is what actually contributes to it happening more consistently, more frequently, and in a more intense, let's say, way. So again, it goes back to where, where are we putting our attention, and what's the judgment about it? So there are ways to like release anxiety and make those symptoms less reoccurring and less intense. So there's ways to alleviate and then finally ameliorate them. But one of them, a very important one, is not to try to control it, to let it go through its cycle. And we could look at that as the little self that has more fear, is how can we let it cycle through its fears and move it into some kind of positive, or life-affirming is even a better phrase, life-affirming transmutation of that energy. And that's what I teach in Transforming Fear into Creativity. That process, that inner work, is how do we use that energy? How do we transmute that energy? Just like anger, there's nothing wrong with anger. Chronically, it can be very debilitating. But if you have anger, how can you channel it? If you have fear, how can you channel it? Do you see how much lighter that is? Instead of judging, oh God, I can't believe I have fear, or I'm in lack, but I really have abundance, but I really feel the fear, because your subconscious mind it's going to respond to what your actual state of being is. So if you are in a state of fear, it's better to work through that, align yourself to what you're feeling and going through, and then begin to channel that energy. So that's my little sharing for today, answering some questions that people had about they're not getting ahead because they're in fear. No, that's not the reason your goals are not happening in your dreams. Now, there's many reasons. I could get into do a whole podcast on that. Is it really aligned to your soul, for one? Is there something just off a little bit? Is it the cycle you're in? That's why I read as a psychic, I like to look at cycles. You can look at it through numerology. You can look at it in your astrology. You can look at the psychic cycle that you're in. What are you coming out of? And I feel this is going to be very, very, very important in this new paradigm, is to understand cycles. Because when you understand cycles, you understand energy. You understand the currency of life. You understand the current. All right? And what's another word for currency? Money. It's all the same, folks. It's all the same. So when you start understanding the energetics of yourself and situations, the external world, organizations, governments, life itself, when you start understanding the energetics, then you're understanding the currency and where is the current going. And you also begin to understand with that we're all floating in this together. So if there's a lot of fear on the planet, some of that fear is going to be processed through you. Not only your individual fears, but just collective fears can come through, right? Because we're all interconnected. We're in this, if you want to call it zeitgeist or morphogenic fields or resonant fields. We're picking up. We're all these transmitters, broadcasters, transponders, transmitting, and picking up the signal, putting out the signal. But what do you do if you don't want that signal? If you have a different signal going on, you can change the channel. You can get on you can just redirect your energy, not bypassing. If it's your fear, be with it, deal with it, connect in with it, transmute it, use it. But if it's someone else's fear, you don't have to take it on. You could just let it float right through the mind, float right out. Let it float on through. All right, let's get to callers. 347-539-5122. Press 1 on the keypad. Hey, Jay. Listening by radio, but wanted to be in the chat to say hi. Yeah, thanks. Hi. Happy Wednesday. Yeah, Tasha Blue, what are you talking about? Fighting what is. That's true. Oh, my God, not to fight what is. Exactly. And I'm telling you, I think sometimes, misinformation gets out to kind of put people in, sometimes in a different, wrong direction. Yeah, you don't want to fight what is. You want to, it's just like swimming in a riptide. You go with the riptide. You go with it. And as you go with it, there's a little pause there that then you can swim away from it. And then you go with it and you swim away. You go with it and you swim away. That brings you to shore. If you fight the current, what happens? You go further out to sea. So, yeah, Tasha, good point. Okay, press 1 on your keypad if you have a question or a comment. Let's see. We've got Tasha and the question. Could you feel into the energy of a dinner I could attend? Good to go, or should I skip for a more aligned time? Would it be better energy to go to a friendly get-together? Oh, that's interesting. Oh, Tasha, I said to take the path of least resistance and your pick a card. Okay, I didn't know that. Well, there we go. Well, right now, I think we're learning this. See, the ego part of this fears that. It's like, oh, no, if I go with what's happening, then I'm saying that I'm okay with this, and I'm going with this. And what I really want is never going to happen. No, that's not true. They know this in martial arts. You go with the energy. Like if somebody is punching a lot, you don't start punching a lot. You use that energy. You know that person that's flailing and, punching a lot in the air, you go with that energy. You let them keep punching. You don't do it because they'll either tire out or in their frenetic energy, you'll see an energetic opening, a spot. So it's fascinating when you get kind of study martial arts, the background of it. I took martial arts years ago, so there's a whole philosophy to it. But yes, using the energy, how to transform or transmute the energy. Transmutation transforms what's happening. How to grab hold of the energy. In other words, just think of someone throwing, it's like a boomerang. It throws and it comes back. Think of someone, I'm thinking of like a video game or something, or like a sci-fi. Someone's throwing this fire arrow. And you could be so aligned to that arrow that you let it come to you, and then you put your hands up like a force field, and now the arrow turns around. It's however you want to describe it. It's what is the energetics in your situation? How can you align to it and then use it? How can you use that energy? In other words, if you're really down, how can you go even deeper to connect in with yourself? Whatever the process is it to love yourself more? Is it to heal? Is it to rest? It's just like when we rest. A lot of times we resist it. I just got over being sick, you guys, for like 3 days or 2 days, really. I was feeling not well, and then I had last night the chills, and I thought, oh, good, I'm healing. It must have been a stomach bug because I felt like funny in my tummy. It was really. So I did my little tinctures and concoctions of wormwood and olive, just different things that I do, and diatomaceous earth. I did my own little, detox little cleanse, little nurturing and tonic, and had some really good vegan Thai food from the vegan Thai place by my house. Extra spicy to move things through, nice and warm and healing, and with this red rice. And then just last night the chills came on. I thought, okay, we're healing now. And did the ice pack on the head and lots of blankets. And I woke up, oh my God, on fire. Like, oh my God, da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da. I mean, just so much energy and so many clear ideas of some things that I'm doing project-wise. So sometimes the deep dive is really healing, is really helpful. So Tasha, you're right. The path of least resistance. How can you connect into that? And it doesn't mean you're agreeing to whatever it is or you want to stay there. It's just you're going to utilize the energy instead of fight it. You're going to find the way to tap into that energy And once you're in that energetic current, then you can start bending it and moving. You know, you can start using the energy. Oh, it was 2 weeks ago. Okay, the pick a card. Well, very cool. Okay, Tasha, I'm not understanding your question. I would say do what you feel most aligned to. It sounds like you want to redo the get-together. It sounds like you want to redo the get-together. Oh, Jay, I love these weekly pick-a-cards. I had a pick on Monday, and then I was going to listen again today, and the card pick changed. It was perfect for me, healing turquoise, which I totally needed because I'm fighting a cold that wants to come in. Hey, Jay, well, I had my little cycle. Oh, by the way, those of you that the pick a card for October, I'm doing, okay, I'm going to do at least the monthlies, the ones for the October, the ones for the month. I am doing one for YouTube, and then I'm doing an extended on Patreon so that people, because I like to do a deep dive. I may do one other pick a card that has an extended, but for now I have the time. So the October one, it's all edited. I just have to put the timestamps in. It's already uploaded. It's late because I didn't want to overly push. I was getting sickish, low energy, and I felt something coming on, and it did come on, but it didn't get as bad as it could have been because I went with the energy of my body. Even though I had so many things I needed to do, I needed to get stuff for this workshop I'm doing at the end of the month. Everybody was waiting for my content. My people I work with, are you sending that? When are you sending them? We're going to do the mailing. Do you want me to do it now? And I just went, if I push, it's going to be worse. I'm going to just go with this energy. And I always do love a good fever, though. When you have a good fever, and I don't get them all the time, but a good fever really cleans out things. And years ago, when I hardly ever got sick, and I don't necessarily get sick that much, but I remember going to my Dr. Gruen, holistic health doctor, and I had started getting sick a little bit. And he's a medical doctor, but he's also holistically trained, and he does, I think he does homeopathics also. But he's into longevity and whatever. He's pretty amazing. But anyway, he said, no, your body getting sick every now and then is actually good. It's actually a cleansing. It's actually clearing things out for you. So to get, sick once in a while is actually healthy. Okay, callers, I'm going to get to you, but now that you disappeared, 347-539-5122. Press 1 on the keypad. Oh, Tasha in the chat, Tasha Blue, I would make it easy for you is what I'm getting. I feel like you need, let me go back up. I don't know what the question is. Could you, I would skip for a more aligned time. Get together instead. Yeah, I think you get your energy up. The fact that you're asking this question is kind of telling me you're not ready for it. So there's nothing wrong with being more prepared or ready for something, more aligned to it. Does that make sense, Tasha? Tosh Blue? Okay, thank you. Yeah. There's sometimes, is it feed a fever, starve a cold? I had a swell fever, then went away, my sore throat to my head. Oh, my God, Jay, I started having the sore throat, but then I did old school chloroseptic and rested, and then I did lemon with some, I'm doing right now, what am I doing? Yerba mate with a little honey. I did lemon, I think, with a little bit of maple syrup, but then the thing went into the stomach. Feed a cold. I think it's feed a cold, starve a fever. I don't know. Feed a cold, starve a cold, feed a fever. I don't know. Somebody Google it. I don't remember. I remember I didn't have, I was really hungry, had my Thai, my Penang curry. I had to leftover that, but I wasn't that, I was really hungry. I ate a little and then was like satisfied. I wasn't hungry at all, and I was like, going to lose a couple pounds in this scenario too. That's good. So I don't know. I don't know. I wasn't hungry. I don't know. When you get sick, you're not as hungry, right? Who knows? I think, doesn't it go from maybe the cold to the flu? You know, there's different stages as it cycles through. Oh, yes, Jay in the chat. Tea with lemon, yeah, and honey. Yeah, or what I do is I take honey. Usually in the morning I start anyway when I first wake up. Usually a little water or lemon and water. And I find if I'm feeling a little sickish or something or sore throat, I will do hot water with lemon, like a lemonade. And then I'll either do a little bit of honey or a little bit of maple syrup. If I sweeten. Now, that's if I have a throat thing, I'll sweeten to coat it. If I don't have a throat thing, like if it's just getting up on a regular day for me and I do the lemon in hot water, I usually do not. I can't say never. Sometimes I will put honey or maple syrup. Kind of like the Master Cleanse. I used to do that a lot. But I find I like lemon in water, so a lot of times I don't sweeten it. Let's see. Oh, yeah, Tosh Blue fasting is great. I used to fast a lot. I do a little bit, like maybe once a week. I haven't done it in a while, but I was in a flow for a while where Mondays I would fast, and I definitely do that, what they call intermediate fasting now. I just learned about that years ago from Harvey and Marilyn Diamond in Fit for Life, because I used to food combine. And then years ago I was, I think, a vegan, and then I was vegetarian. I think I was vegan for 7 years and vegetarian for like 20. So, yeah, and I used to fast. I think the longest I fasted was 40 days or 45 days. And it just depends on body type too. I'm like a camel. I can fast. I was able to work out. I was able to just, after a while, after like the third or fourth day, you really start feeling good. You don't want food. And after about a week or two, you really don't want to have food. I mean, it was like, because you get very high. So I would be like, oh, I don't want to eat. Now, mind you, I would do juice fasting. Water, because I feel you do need the nutrients. I feel just straight water is, I don't know. People have different thoughts about that. But I would either do juice and dilute things, or juice with water, or just raw vegetables, the juicing. But yeah, Tosh, juicing is amazing, or fasting, or just doing a fast, a cleanse, And think about it, breakfast, we're really not to have a huge breakfast, unless you're hungry, obviously, but that break fast, we have this fast from the evening before till the morning. And so breakfast or break fast, in some countries they just have some fruit or juice or whatever. So you kind of want to take it slow. All right, 347-539-5122 is the number. Press 1 on your keypad. Tosh, let me see how that resonates, what I shared with you. I think just trust your intuition, trust your feelings or what you're up to right now, what you feel ready for. Maybe you need fortification. All right, let's get to a caller here. Hi, you're on air.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Hi, my name is Maria. I call from Career.
Hi, Maria. Welcome. Yes.
How are you?
Hi. Oh, good.
So the weather by you over here today is very warm.
Very warm? Oh, yeah, but you had a lot of rain, right? Didn't you have a lot of rain?
Yeah, I got a lot of rain. It was more in New York. I live in New York State. Then I was that much water. My New York locality was a cry was really, really bad.
It was bad.
That much water, the train stopped. Even if people died, they said,
Oh.
Water inside the house and Queens, Brooklyn, the people who go confused, go crazy.
Oh gosh. Okay. Maria, how are you doing? Okay though with it? You were okay?
We're doing okay. Still my house, I remember I told you once, with the roof still nothing. Still the way I am, the way I was, the way I am, Aaron. I came in and going.
Did you have your daughter call get an attorney to have them write a letter?
Yeah, we call it a lawyer. If your lawyer said they don't want to get it, they think now we find a lawyer, they're gonna get it. The fellow, they're gonna see. I got a need justice, independent justice too. To look at, because they not do the roof work when you go in Italy. You know?
You got to get this fixed first, right?
Sure. I can live in the house.
Yeah.
I got a mess in my house. You
Yeah.
see me still, I'm going to go. You got a message from the angel. You see I'm going to go in Italy. What you tell me? I'm more confused. I have no idea.
When are you going to go? Well, I feel you first have to fix your house, right? You're going to work with the attorney to get that done. Are you going to have your daughter go with you?
Yes.
Okay. Good. So when do you want to go? When do you want to go?
I want to go soon to do the roof. I got the suitcase ready. I was supposed to go to September. I can't even make a ticket. Maybe I want to go at the end of this month and the beginning of the month. I don't know. What do you think?
You want to go the end of this month?
On the end of this month and the beginning of the month. What do you think?
Oh, let me see. Let's see the best time for Maria to go the end of this month, beginning of next.
Right.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Let's see, to go in, I think next month.
You think next month to go?
Well, it's up to you. It's up to you, but it shows that that's a better month. You have family there too, right, or friends? There's some people there.
I got a family over there. I got a relative or a cousin.
Yeah.
Friend.
Okay. Yeah. So, is your daughter going to go with you?
Yeah. I want to live there for months. What do you think?
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Why not? It's up to you. Yes, why not? I think that sounds great.
Yeah, me too. I like to stay there, So come and see me. I wanted to buy.
I'd love to. Well, I plan a trip next year, so.
And next year, I'm going to buy. I was looking about to buy a little house over there. They got a beautiful building, beautiful home. So I buy the house, and next year, come and live by me.
And your daughter is going to be there, right? With you?
Yes.
Oh, I'm so that's great. Wow. I'm happy for you.
Nice fiance over there, nice Italian man.
Yes, nice. Send one for me, Maria.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, coming over there, you got so many men.
Yeah.
Oh,
God. Are there a lot? Oh, gosh. More than where I'm at, I think.
Yeah.
Well, I think this is good. And you can still, we have people that listen to the podcast in Europe. So you can still listen and call in.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
So,
listen, I can call it over there, too.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the phone. I can call you. Why not?
Yeah. Good. So your daughter, I just want to make sure. So she's going to what do you call it? She's going to call the attorney, or you did already?
Yeah, they did already.
Okay. Oh, good. Oh, good.
She's going to send it to Papa. You think I'm going to win for the panel?
I think the attorney is going to be helpful. I think you need the attorney.
Yeah. I hope so. The lawyer, the name is Eric. The name.
Eric. Okay, let's see. Maria's attorney, Eric. Oh, I like him.
Is it good?
Yeah, I like him. How did you find him?
Through the computer, my daughter find.
Okay.
Yesterday, my daughter talked to him and says, send him
and
all
your daughter
of
liked him?
Yeah. Send him all of the papers a local.
Okay. Well, you have to let us know how it goes, everything goes, please, and good luck with this. I really hope you get this taken care of. Well, I know you're going to get it taken care of. Yeah, I know you're going to get it taken care of.
Thank you.
It just takes time.
I got an application house. I can go. I hope I can do this a month. I can go in the beginning next month.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Well, I like that you're going to go. You and your daughter are going to go to Italy. I like that. I think that's good. I think that's going to be good for you guys.
Yeah, we are so much depressed, so much confused, so much. You don't know what to do. The holiday come in, we alone. You don't know what to do. You know what I mean? You go crazy. You sit down with all of me. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very, 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 very much. I love you. God bless you.
Love you too, Maria. God bless. Big hug.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Me too. We're going to hear chat. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, callers. Cute little Maria. Yeah, Jay. She's Maria. Wonderful being. Jackie says in the chat, I love her. Yeah. Jay says, cute little Maria. Oh, nice call. Okay, if you have questions or comments, please either put them in the chat or you can call in 347-539-5122. It's time now for our Awakening Dialogue. We have with us August Turak. I hope I'm getting that name right. Founder of Self-Knowledge Symposium Foundation. Author of wrote recent book, Not Less Than Everything, One Man's Quest for Spiritual Enlightenment, and also Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks, which I'm dying to know that. Listen, monks, priests, nuns, they get it going in the entrepreneur sector. Hi, August. Welcome.
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah. It's great to connect with you. I failed to mention, I want to let people know, I want you to share a little bit about your path. I kind of, when I was looking at your info, I'm like, oh, this is the archetype of the Buddhic quest. You know, the Buddha was in the temporal world, right? And then went more for the spiritual. So that kind of the hero's journey with the archetype of the Buddhic journey. Because you worked at MTV and then you founded 2 software business companies. I find that fascinating, how you went from there to living and working with the Trappist monks. So in saying that, I'd love to know a little bit about your background. I'll kind of let you take the lead on that, a little bit about your background, what you were doing, and then your kind of awakening or epiphany of either wanting something more or something different, that crossroads that you took, that turning point that happened for you to where you are now.
Certainly. I mean, to me, what is interesting is what people so often get wrong around me, because I've had a very quote-unquote illustrious business career. I sold to several companies, and as you said, I was one of them. I didn't just work for MTV. I was one of the founders of MTV.
Were you? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
I was there. I started with the company on January 5th, 1981, and we launched MTV on August 1st, 1981. So but most people misidentify me as a businessman or something, or an entrepreneur, or even a writer who happened to have some kind of epiphany that got me into spirituality or something like that. Wrong. I was a spiritual person that happened to be in business. My first priority in my life always was my spiritual life. And I had my epiphany when I was only 18, 19 years old. And
what was that? Do you mind sharing that?
Well,
that
what happened with
that
me
awakening?
was that I was, what happened to me, first of all, I always talk about aspiration and desperation. The greatest seekers are a combination of aspiration and desperation. The desperation part of me was I was just, I was doing well in college, and I had a lot of friends and all that kind of stuff, and there was something missing in my life, just something profoundly, and it expressed itself in me in depression. It was kind of that sense of Joseph Campbell, I think, talked about it. He said, oftentimes when people get to their mid-20s or 30 or definitely when they get to their midlife crisis, is this all there is? Is this it? Is this is this all there is?
Yeah.
I've had a girlfriend. I've been drunk. I've been in New York City. Is that it? So I was stumbling through life with that kind of an attitude, where I was being disappointed. I would go after things and I'd get them, and I think, that was great, but it wasn't what I'm looking for. And then I stumbled on a book while I was down at the beach in 1971 by Alan Watts, talking about cosmic consciousness. It was called This Is It. And it was I read it twice in one night, and I said, this is it. This is,
wow.
And I got interested in mysticism and whether, and as I said on the back cover of my new book, Not Less Than Everything, I said, every religion has Samadhi, Satori, the Unio Mystico, the cosmic consciousness, all the mystics of all the great religions talk about this fundamental experience that makes the whole universe make sense and answers all, as my first Zen teacher said, answers all your questions. So I became profoundly interested, and then I stumbled on summer of 1972, this incredible, wild, wonderful West Virginia hillbilly Zen master who was living in Benwood, West Virginia. His name was Richard Rose. And I was fascinated by this guy and terrified by this guy. And I started hanging around with him and actually started a club on campus at the University of Pittsburgh called the Zen Study Society that he would chair the meetings. And then in the summer of 73, he owned a farm in West Virginia. I was actually his first student. And
oh, wow.
By that time, there was a number of people that were interested, and so we had this summer intensive, which I write about, by the way, my new book, Not Less Than Everything, One Man's Quest for Spiritual Enlightenment. I talk about all this stuff is in there. It's my spiritual memoir. And as I say in the introduction, I was lucky enough in 2004, I won the Templeton Prize. I won the $100,000 prize for the first thing I ever tried to write in my life. Was an essay answering the question, what is the purpose of life? And about 4 or 5 months later, my brother Chris, who was an attorney, said that one of his colleagues said, you mean your brother never read anything before in his life? And then he whips off an essay over the weekend. He goes up against 10,000 essays from 47 countries and he wins $100,000. And my brother said, yeah, that's pretty much the story. He said, boy, is your brother Augie lucky. And my brother Chris said, no, Augie's been working on that essay for 35 years. And in the introduction to Not Less Than Everything, I say, this is the story of those 35 years. So anyway, in the summer of 1973, I had a profound spiritual experience in Richard Rose's kitchen, which I describe in my book, which was so profound that I drove back to Pittsburgh at the end of the summer, broke up with my girlfriend, dropped out of college, moved out of the house I was living with my college roommates and stuff, became celibate, quit smoking, quit drinking, quit everything, and just decided to dedicate my life to finding this thing called enlightenment. So this all happened to me in 1973, and so 1971 was when I read the book by Alan Watts that opened my eyes. I have to also say that I think taking LSD had something to do with it too. I tried LSD back in those days, and that was a revelation to me about the fact that what we take for reality is not really all that there is. So I started off on this spiritual quest, and I ended up with a truck and a bunch of tools in the back of it so I could install carpet, and living in the back of my truck and traveling from city to city and going to bookstores and asking the owners who were the smartest people in town that can teach me something about life. And I mean, I was on a mission from God.
You were totally on the seeker trail.
Yeah,
the seeker path.
That whole
right.
You mentioned my book, Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks, One Man's Quest for Meaning and Authenticity, which was published by Columbia Business School. It came out of an article, by the way, that I wrote for Forbes magazine. But and I used that whole motif of the hero's journey. That we're all yearning to go on the hero's journey.
Yeah. When I was reading her stuff, I thought, boy, you are in that archetype of the hero's journey. I feel with that the Buddha, the seeking the enlightenment and having these experiences, and then, rejecting certain things on your path so that you can focus on that, self-learning and understanding, awareness and enlightenment.
Absolutely. That was my whole life. And even when I went over into business, then I still saw business as a way, if you want, the essence of my path has always been self-knowledge, and that's why it's called the Self-Knowledge Symposium Foundation. And that's one of the essential things, especially the Eastern philosophies of Buddhism and yoga and things like Zen and yoga, that if you know yourself, you'll know God too. As a matter of fact, the Oracle Delphi, when you used to go to the Oracle of Delphi, there was supposedly an inscription there that said, "Know thyself, and you'll know the gods, and you'll know the gods in the heavens as well." So, if you want to know
paths
yourself,
too, if they're really good doctrines or disciplines or teachers, know thyself is the first part before you start studying.
Absolutely,
right?
I started working with college students in the late 80s and mentoring them on a volunteer basis, and we called it the Self-Knowledge Symposium because if you start with self-knowledge, you can transcend doctrinal differences. All religions agree with the importance of self-knowledge.
Yes.
But what made us different is we moved far beyond just simple introspection. Introspection is important, but introspection is actually a relatively poor way of learning who you are. If you want to know who you are, as they say, pressure doesn't just build character, it reveals it as well. So when you're an entrepreneur like I was, and you're starting with a $2,500 initial investment and it's a garage startup, and you finally start making little money, are you going to pay your employees? Are you going to pay yourself? And that's how you find out. You can run around telling. There's that old saying. What is it? P.J. O'Rourke
your
said.
Ethics.
Your values. Everybody's for saving the world. Nobody wants to help mom with the dishes.
Yeah.
And so you can talk the talk, but are you going to walk the walk? And when you get into business and the pressure comes down, and now are you going to take the shortcut? Are you going to pay yourself? If you make a commitment, for example, to pay your vendors net 30, so 30 days you're supposed to pay them. When the 30 days comes up and you can either pay them or you can pay yourself, what do you do?
Yeah.
And that reveals to you, if you're honest with yourself, that reveals to you who you really are.
Yeah. What do you think, though, to Turak, saying that is also, obviously some people have more integrous, right? It's that wholeness, and others. But what about the people, the reflections? Did that ever figure in? Because it sounds like you have this, more of this naturally. Some people waver, they're on the...
Oh my goodness!
They're kind of on the...
Don't talk. No. All people waver.
Yeah.
If you read Siddhartha, which is the story of the Buddha, right?
I have read it. Yeah.
What is he gets seduced, and he ends up going with the girl, and he gets fat and happy, and he makes a lot of money, and I actually talk about in my book that one of the times that it was one of the big reasons when I was at MTV, I had an unlimited expense account. I was had an office that was the size of my house. I was driving around in limousines. I was flying around in helicopters. Frankly, I could get any girl in New York City I wanted, and I was miserable. And I was trying to bury I was so sick to death of being a seeker. Years and years of plowing away, of everybody that I met telling me I was nuts, of every single, looking around, seeing other people get on with their lives, et cetera. No, we all waver. And fear is the number one obstacle to the spiritual path. And you have to learn how to turn into the fear rather than away from the fear.
Yeah.
And that's not something that comes... Excuse me.
Okay, I got to just tell you, August, all the time, this is God's orchestration always. Always the guest, there's always a synchronistic connection to what I've talked about at the beginning of the podcast, and we're talking a lot about fear and not trying to push it away, and I gave all these different examples of different people I've worked with. So you touching upon that, turning into it, you know.
Right.
Anyway, that's just interesting. Yeah.
You know, there's a concept mostly in Christianity, and we talk about the monks. Let's talk about the monks for a second. And when you become a monk, you first start out as a postulant. Usually, you start out as an observer. Then, if you decide to join, then you become a postulant. Then you become a novice. Then you take your simple vows, and then you take your solemn vows. And that whole process is called formation, where you're formed. You know, and this is a character development. You have to develop a character. You have to go. You know, Aristotle said we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not a choice; it's a habit. So you develop a habit of spirituality until you can't really. You couldn't stop. When you get scared, you couldn't stop even if you wanted to. There's twice in my book, Not Less Than Everything, where I talk about where I came across the two scariest crossroads of my whole spiritual path. And I said what carried me through in both of those cases, instead of running away, I went forward, and they turned out to be tremendous decisions. Why did I do that? And I said, because I had become like a highly disciplined and highly trained soldier whose legs keep moving long after his heart and his head have given up. You know, there's a saying in the military, and I've studied military history, that the vast majority of men get killed running away from the battle. The safest thing you can do is go forward towards the bullets, not try to run away from them. But the natural instinct is to run away from them. So it's the training and the discipline, the formation. You know, in the hero's journey, that's the desert stage. That's the stage in all these movies.
Dark Night of the Soul.
This is where the hero's got to go out there, and Yoda screams at him, "Don't try, do!" Or the Karate Kid guy goes, "Wax on, wax off, wax on, wax off." Or Neo in the Matrix. Neo takes, Morpheus takes Neo into that room and beats the living snot out of him for a few days, and then has him dive off of buildings and do face plants, and And this is the formational process. This is the gritty, hard, disciplined kind of stuff that you have to do that's going to carry you through when the SOL happens, when things really hit the fan. And they're going to hit the fan. Guaranteed. If you're on a true spiritual life, they're going to hit the fan. And your choice is going to be to run away. But there is, you said it's something natural to me, and there is something that a story I like to tell is when I was like 8 years old, 8 years old, very young. And I was fascinated by Christmas. So I decided I wanted to go Christmas caroling. I was really hot to trot to go Christmas caroling. Of course, I didn't know how to Christmas carol, but I went around the neighborhood, and I got 4 or 5 boys in the neighborhood to say they'd go Christmas caroling with me. And then when it got dark, I went around, and they all chickened out. And so I was all alone, and I went home, and I got my Christmas carol book, and then I looked around the house, and the only flashlight I could find was a great big railroad lantern. And I know how young I was because I had to put it on my shoulder. That's how heavy it was. And I went Christmas caroling alone. And I walked up the middle of our street. It was a cul-de-sac, so there was no traffic. Screaming at the top of my lungs, "Silent Night," "Joy to the World," crying my heart out, miserable. But I did it. And when I got back, my mother was waiting for me, and I cried in my mother's arms. And when I look back at that, I said, why was I, crying? I said, first of all, why did I do it? Because even at 7 years old, I realized if I waited on other people and I let fear, I was terrified. But if I let fear stop me, I would never truly live. Number 2, I was crying because I really sensed, even at 7, that this meant that I was going to have to do a lot of things alone, that people were going to crap out on me. When the going got tough, there's going to be a lot of people who, the people that I was counting on would probably crap out on me. So this, I think, is the biggest thing that's missing from most people's spiritual path. They don't go through the formational process. They don't have the guru that screams, "Don't try, do." They don't have the Morpheus who kicks their butt, And then when as soon as it gets inconvenient or it gets hard or whatever, then they run away. Yeah. And so that's very much a big part of Not Less Than Everything, my new book.
The book.
By the way, I wanted to mention that right now, Not Less Than Everything is available. Amazon's doing a special promotion of Not Less Than Everything for 99 cents for the electronic version. So you can get it for 99 cents.
So just tell, because everything is going to be in the podcast description box, but just for the people, a lot of people listening, we just got some people in the chat that said they're just now tuning in, so they might have missed some of the beginning. Just give the link, the website, any pertinent information for those that are.
Okay.
A lot of people listen, but they don't go to the description box. And then anybody in the chat, if you have any question, aligned to what we're talking about, you can put it in the chat. You can also call in. I think somebody had a question, said he may have already covered it, but you can just write it in the chat, and I will.
So anyway, my website is August Turak. That's August like the month. T as in Tom. URAK.com, and if you go there, to augustturak.com, again, it's August like the month, Turak, Turak, one word, .com, you'll see that there's a click there that you can click right to Amazon to get the 99-cent electronic version of Not Less Than Everything, and then you can also buy the physical copy. It just came out. It's not even been out a week yet. But you can get it for 50% off. We're offering it for 50% of what Amazon's charging for it right now. So you can get both of those books right there. And actually, on my website, you can read more about my other 2 books, which is Brother John, A Monk, A Pilgrim, and the Purpose of Life, and the other one is Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks, One CEO's Quest for Meaning.
I want you to come back and talk about that, because we've had Mark Allen, who's started kind of spiritual entrepreneurship and business, and has a a publishing company, right?
Right.
Which I'm escaping the new. So I'm kind of interested, and I think that blending that spirituality is so important, or the spiritual practice or principles in business to make it more fulfilling. A lot of people don't do that, but I think that that's kind of where we're going.
Well, to me, a lot of the big mistake, and this is a lot of the theme of Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks, is that we should get back to later. We can talk about why I started going to the monastery in the first place, which was an epiphany at some point. Anyway, is that they think there's a conflict between doing right and making money. And the monks are fabulously successful in business. And the way Business Secrets came about is I was just sitting around, and I don't know why I started doing it. Because I was a businessman, and I said, hey, why are these guys so successful in business? They don't care about business. I don't think they can spell the word. They only work 4 hours a day. They're all 65 years old or older. They work at very mundane things, like they sell eggs and they sell mushrooms. They keep silent, and yet everything they touch turns to gold. So what is the secret to their success? And so I ended up writing this, what I thought was a white paper. Someone sent it to Forbes, and I gave it to some friends. Somebody sent it to Forbes. Forbes called up and said, hey, can we make this in a 4-part article? I said, yes. Then it went viral. Then Columbia Business School called me and said, would you like to turn it into a book? So I didn't even have an agent, This all just spontaneously happened.
Love that.
But the secret to the success is It is in your own self-interest to forget your self-interest. The more successfully you forget your selfish motivations, the more successful in business you become. And people think that's really crazy stuff. And I said, no. What is the job of a leader? What's your most important? Most people make the mistake of they want to be a leader so they can make more money and get ahead for selfish reasons. And when they become a leader or a manager, they're thinking, how can I get ahead? How can I suck up to the boss? The job of a leader, the more you forget about yourself, forget about your own promotions, and fanatically focus on getting other people promoted. The job of a leader is to get other people promoted, to get other people raises, to see other people maximize their potential. The more you do that, the faster you get promoted. You know, I came up in sales. I was a good enough salesman that I was on the cover of Selling magazine one time. And what I learned in sales is the more I forgot about myself, about my commission, forgot about my product, forgot about my quota, and instead fanatically focused on my customer and making my customer happy, the more sales I made.
Wow.
I was an entrepreneur. And I can tell you from experience that the more I forgot about my profit of my own company and fanatically focused on helping my customers make more money, the more profit I made. Everything we want in life or think we want in life are the trailing indicators. They're the byproducts of living your life for a higher meaning and purpose. And they're not the goal. They're just a byproduct. Everything that I have accomplished, from winning the $100,000 Templeton Prize to becoming an author after I sold companies and worked at MTV, and all of it is a byproduct. And I call it happy accidents. You know, the happy accidents that happen to you. It's a byproduct of my spiritual life. And right now we're living in a very, very dark time. You know, CDC just came out and said 57% of young teenage girls report being constantly sad. 30% say they're considered suicide. 40% of incoming freshmen, even at elite universities, are now on antidepressants or anti-anxiety medication. You know, tons of young men, boys, are they call it failure to launch. They're living in their parents' basement until they're 40, smoking pot, watching porn, playing video games. I could go on. We got a suicide epidemic. There were no high school suicide helplines when I was in high school. Believe you.
Yeah.
So what is going on? And Andrew Sullivan, writing for New York Magazine, I think put it best, and I put this in the introduction of my book. Said America. He said, if you think this is the opioid epidemic, he wrote a wonderful article called the Poison We Pick. And he said, if you think the opioid epidemic is a drug problem, he said, you're missing something, the despair that makes so many people want to fly away. He said, America invented modern life. Now millions of people are taking heroin to get away from it. He said, we're living in a strange new world where everything is flat, where communication is virtual, and those core elements of human happiness, faith, family, community, seem to elude so many. And he calls it a spiritual crisis. He goes on to say, until we reinvent our religion, or find a new religion, find some higher meaning, he said, I'm afraid the poppy's going to keep flourishing. And I keep saying this, all these individual crises that are, nobody wants to get married anymore. Nobody's having children anymore. And when people are not having children, I think that's a failure of belief in the future. All these things are just symptoms of a spiritual crisis that people don't have. A good friend of mine's 15-year-old daughter, beautiful girl named Lily, she gets a telephone call at the suicide helpline. Somebody called the suicide helpline and told her that Lily's suicidal. She goes to her daughter and says, this is true. Lily says yes. And she says, why, Lily? And Lily says, what's there to live for?
Yeah.
What's there to live for?
I look at this quite a bit. I mean, I think it's definitely spiritual, but different prongs to that. Having worked in school, being a teacher, I was a model, successful model, and actor, and I saw it. I saw the pitfalls. I always had a spiritual connection, so things didn't bother me, as much, of not getting a certain job or this or that. But the people that didn't have that inner connection, whether you want to call it their art, music, another way of expressing themselves and feeling that inner connection to something more, to God or their inner knowing, whatever you want to call it, didn't fare well. And then I'll tell you, Turak, I saw combination of things. Taking, creativity and art, now history, but creativity and art out of school definitely, handicaps children from expressing what they need to express, whether creatively or just, working through issues in a way that they're doing through it, their subconscious coming out, where they're not having to, consciously process, because, children don't do that as well, and some adults don't. But I saw a turning point in the mid-'90s. I had a show called Fashion and Beauty, and we went in this well-known department store to do interviews about trends in junior fashion. And we were in the department, and I said to the person that was organizing it, I said, "Oh, we're going to do it in the stockroom or the warehouse." And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Oh, well, aren't we going to do it on the floor, because we're highlighting different, parts of the store?" And she said, "No, this is the junior department." And I said, "Oh, we're not in the warehouse." The reason I had asked that was I noticed the clothing racks, there was rows and rows of the same shirt or same top or same, like 40 or 50. And when I was growing up, you wanted something that was individual. If everybody was wearing it, you didn't want it. You wanted to be more artistic and individual. That's kind of, how I grew up. And she said, "Oh no." I said, "Well, why don't you just have one or two or five items?" And she said, "The kids won't buy it." She says they come in, if they don't see a lot of the same thing being sold, and she goes, or they'll look online and go, they come in, is everybody wearing this? And I've seen this since. I've kind of did another little poll on this over the years, and have heard the same thing. If everybody's not doing it or everybody's not wearing it, we don't want it. And we have to see that there's a lot to confirm that this is okay, this is the in thing, this is what I need to wear or do. And you can see this across the board, and what that means, there's no interconnection to. So that becomes very scary when that's constantly changing, right?
Yeah, and I think, I think that the whole idea of fitting in and being part of the in crowd rather than the out crowd, I think has been an adolescent issue since adolescence was invented. And I'm not saying that you're not putting your finger on something. I worked with college students from 1988 on 3 different college campuses through the early 2000s, and these were classes that were not about instruction. We didn't read books. I gave kids an opportunity to really get down and dirty, about what was really, and I saw, and to me, the 3 things. Well, I'll even start with Dean Williman, who was my campus advisor at Duke University, and he was the dean of the Duke Chapel over it, and he gave a talk. He told me he gave this talk to all the freshman parents. And one of the parents put up her hand and said, "What is the biggest single problem you face with our children?" And he said, "Your divorces."
Yeah, well, that sets people on.
And believe me,
but there's a difference in wanting to fit in and having anxiety of, there's ranges to that. When you lose yourself. I saw
these kids. I saw kids that could speak 3 languages and play the violin like and have been all over the world and stuff, and crying like babies over their parents' divorces. The other thing is getting into sex way too young. And the third thing is a lack of God, that they weren't brought up with any kind of religion or any kind of, Carl Jung said.
See, I think that's the main, honestly, because all those other things change, right, over time, but if you don't have that inner connection, that's why I'm saying it's a pronged, multi-pronged,
Yeah, but I think there's also been a
challenge.
I think you're absolutely right, but I think there's these things like divorce is a very recent phenomenon. I mean, you go to, our suicide rate, for example, is off the Richter scale, and nobody kills themselves in Bangladesh, and they're living on $1 a day. But they have a very strong family structure, and they have a very strong religious structure.
Really, yeah.
In Bangladesh, and so
where can people
really
start now that are listening to this, August?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to do is, back in the 1960s, we used to talk about go through the classic agonize and reappraisal, which means you really sit down with yourself and you ask yourself the hard questions. There was a guy in New York Times. He was talking about he's interviewed because the New York Times did an article about Mepkin Abbey, the monks where I go, and he said, and everybody else that was interviewed said it's so peaceful and it's quiet, it's calm and everything. And he said, yeah, it's peaceful and it's very loving and all that stuff. He said, but let me tell you something. When you've got nothing better to do than sit on a park bench overlooking the Cooper River for hours on end, you start thinking about a lot of things you might rather not think about. So first and foremost, you've got to think about those things that you'd rather not think about. Is your life working? Are you where you really want to be? Are you the person that you really want to be? Do you have the answers to the deep-seated questions that nag at us as human beings? So where are you? So you do a personal evaluation or an assessment. And then the second point, which I think most of us, when we do that assessment, we know we're not where we need to be. We're not living the life we'd like to be living. We're not the person we would like to be. If the answer comes back yes, then just crack a beer and have and go on your way. But if the answer is no, then you start saying, okay, now what am I going to do about it? And when I find that I did during my spiritual path, my book is dedicated to my parents, who were both teachers, who drilled into me. My dad was a child of immigrants who came to this country penniless, and who didn't have much education, but they drilled into my father a value of education. He drilled into his 8 children, and I said, and what that drilled into me was I went looking for teachers. If you think you're on a spiritual path and you don't have a mentor or a teacher or a guru, then you're as bad as the doctor who prescribes for himself. And the old adage is, the doctor who prescribes for himself has a fool for a patient. The person who is on a spiritual path all alone as a guru with a fool for a devotee. You've got to get yourself a teacher. And then the next thing that you have to have is a community. You can't do this work alone. The number one obstacle is you get lazy, you get distracted, you fall off the path. The same thing. What would you do if you looked in the mirror and you were 40 pounds overweight? What would you do? Well, first of all, if you were smart, you'd start going to the gym, but you would start going you get other people to go with you, because they'll call you up when you don't feel like going. And they'll say, "Don't tell us you don't feel like going. We're picking you up. You're going to the gym with us."
Yeah.
And then and
so having the people
around
you that are reinforcing
the
what's
right
life
kinds
enhancing
of thing.
in your spirit, the right kind of thing. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, because as Father Francis used to tell us down at the monastery, he said he was talking about Christianity specifically, but I would say it about spirituality generally. He said there's something countercultural about a spiritual life. You're going against the grain. You're inundated with people who are saying that whatever problem can't be solved with money can always be solved with more money. Just throw money at it. You need money. It's a materialistic culture. It's a radically individualistic culture that devalues community. All the things. It's a culture that really doesn't believe that. More and more, the churches are going empty. We don't believe in religion and spirituality anymore. So you're fighting against these trends, and so you need the reinforcement of other people to convince you that when you feel like you're I called it arguments with the world, that I was spending a lot of my energy on my path having an argument with the world. The world was always saying, why don't you give up on this quest? If you were going to reach enlightenment, you would have reached it already. You're drilling a dry hole. You just don't have what it takes. Why don't you just get married and rest in the bosom of your family? And then I'd come back and say, no, that's just rationalization. You're just trying to get off the spiritual hook. You're having this constant argument, and you need other people to help you be a bulwark, or you will succumb. And you'll say, no, I might as well just throw in the towel and get drunk. So you need a community. And the only thing that's been disappointing, and I have to, be very, very careful. I'm really not disappointed in Business Secrets of Travis Monk was my first book. It has sold extremely well. It's been translated into a bunch of other languages. I still get great fan mail. But in the last chapter of that book, I pounded on the table, and I said, nothing in this book is going to do you any good just reading about it. You need to act. You need to get a community of people together and put these ideas into practice. And I have never yet had anybody write to me and say, I read that. How can I get a community started? How can I, we love the idea of community. As I mentioned earlier, that everybody wants to save the world. Nobody wants to help mom with the dishes. Everybody likes the idea of community, but nobody likes the responsibility of organizing, and nobody likes the commitment that you have to make. That if you have meetings on Friday night, you got to go to the darn meeting, even if your favorite movie's on TV. We want the benefits of community without the sacrifices the community requires. And that would be the third way of answering your question. I talked about doing a self-evaluation. Number 2, teacher, community. And number 3, pull up your belt and be willing to make the sacrifices. Because spirituality is not a technique. It's not a technique. It's not a prayer. It's not a meditation. It's not a weekly yoga class. It's a way of life. I asked him, my Zen teacher said, it's not the prayer you say, it's the prayer you live.
I like that. Yes.
He said, are you living? He said, it's all about living the life. And he spent a lot of time talking about how do you live. And I asked a lot of questions, and it's in my Not Less Than Everything. I'm back punching my book again, but Not Less Than Everything, I talk a lot about that because I would ask him, what do you mean by how does one live the life? And what first thing he would say is your spiritual life's got to be your number one priority. When a conflict comes up between something you consider to be spiritual and anything else, the spiritual thing gets. You make the tough decision to do the spiritual thing. I'll tell you a quick story from my business life about that. When I first started, I got an invitation to give a lecture at North Carolina State University, and I gave a lecture called 5 Years with a Zen Master, which was about my experiences with this West Virginia Richard Rose guy I mentioned. The kids loved it, and 4 of them came up, though, and said, listen, we like it so much. Could you mentor us? And I said, okay. I said, just start a student club. That'll get you a room on campus, and then I'll come over on Thursday nights, and I'll mentor, and I'll facilitate. No sooner did I do that, and I get a telephone call from an old colleague of mine from New York, and he says, guess what, Augie? I'm the CEO, and I got $150 million to take United Press International out of bankruptcy and turn the company around. He said, it's going to be so much fun. He said, I'm putting the gang back together. And he started rattling off all these friends of mine that, that were coming on board. And he said, I want you to be my number 2. He said, and I'm going to pay you this obscene amount of money, and you're going to have limousines and big cigars and motor cars and everything you want. The only thing is you got to move to Washington, D.C. And I said, Joe, I can't move to Washington, D.C. And he said, why? I said, I just promised these 4 college freshmen that I will meet with them on a Thursday nights. And he said, what are you talking about? He said, we've got all these universities up here. If you want to, whatever it is you're doing with North Carolina State, you can do it at Georgetown. And I said, well, why don't you just move UPI down to Raleigh? And I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he said, my wife Molly would never go for that. I said, there's lots of women down here, Joe. If my college students are interchangeable, why not your wife? Molly was a good. Molly was a good friend of mine. I knew her very well too.
Okay, yeah, I know you're joking.
So that was the end of my career. the word got out, and that people told me, I got feedback, you're a religious fanatic, you're the best. Somebody, this is a direct quote. I got a job offer. I turned it down because I'd had to move to Colorado. I called the guy who recommended, a big shot in New York, and I said, John, I'm sorry, thanks for recommending me, but I couldn't take the job. And he said, don't worry about it. I covered my butt. I told him, you're the best at what you do, but you're some kind of religious nut. And that was the end of my that was the end of my career.
Wow.
That was the end of my corporate career. I put a bullet in the head of my corporate career for 4 snot-nosed college kids. Why? Because I had made a spiritual promise to them to help them spiritually, and that came before taking a $500,000 job. And then it all worked out because UPI went bankrupt again, and as a result, I became an entrepreneur with a $2,500 initial investment, and 7 years later, we had 2 software companies that we sold for millions of dollars to an Israeli company. So everything worked out for me, but believe me, you're talking about fear or about what do you call it, wavering. Believe me, when I hung up that phone and turned that job for UPI, I wasn't just, at peace. I was thinking, what in the hell are you thinking? From prior experience, like these 4 kids will listen to your stories for the first 3 weeks, and after that they'll be gone. But no, and it spread from North Carolina State to University of North Carolina to Duke University. And then it was my college students at Duke that browbeat me into writing the essay that won the Templeton Prize that launched my writing career. And by the way, it was one of my students who called me from Metcalfe Abbey, where he was spending the entire summer as a guest at Metcalfe Abbey, as what they call a monastic guest. And that's how I ended up hearing about the Metcalfe Abbey and the Trappist monks the first time. I owe so much to my college students. And the whole time I was mentoring these college students, by the way, I can't tell you how many people, what are you doing, Augie? You're trying to run 2 companies, that's killing you anyway as an entrepreneur, and you drive 40 miles 3 times a week to mentor these college students, and you're not even on the faculty. You don't get paid. They don't even treat you respectfully half the time. You're a nut. And the best thing I ever did was go over and work with those college kids. But you have to go against the grain. You have to be willing to do to not do the safe bet, the class, the thing that everybody else is doing. So it worked out for me tremendously. It even worked out again for me because in 2009, some of my Duke students had started a company in New York City, and they called me up, and I flew up there, and they said, listen, we need you to help us get things organized, but we don't have any money. We're just starting out. And I said, forget about it. I said, just give me pay my expenses and give me some stock. And I worked for them for 4 months, and they sent me home with a big wad of stock that I thought would, typically this will end up being worthless, right? And then 5 years later, they go public for $28 a share at $1.2 billion valuation. I made a couple $1 million for 4 months' work.
Yeah. You are in alignment, August. You are in alignment.
Because 10 years earlier, I was volunteering, going over there week after week, night after night, working with college kids on a completely volunteer basis, driving all the way to Durham and back, after working 12 hours that day. This is the way everything, seek first the kingdom of heaven and let everything else take care of itself. Easy to say, extremely hard to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Easier when you have on the path that can help, that can support you in that when we want to waver, which we will, and which we do.
Yeah, that's why you need to form that community. You need to form that community when you don't need them. Because,
exactly. Community and mentoring. I'm a big proponent of teachers, mentors, good mentors.
Like my dad used to say, Augie, you don't go looking for friends when you need them. You make friends long before you need them, and maybe you'll never need them. Mm-hmm. But nothing that irritates me more is when I hear from somebody that I haven't heard from 20 years. Hey, old pal, Augie, how you doing? By the way, can I borrow $5,000?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Hey, remember that time we got drunk in the area? Time we got drunk? Yeah. Hey, by the way, can I borrow $5,000?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Memory lane. Yep. And then the ask is there, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
August, this has been great. We're winding out of time
I really
now.
Enjoyed
Again,
it.
I did too. And I love what you were saying about, really about traveling the path and what comes up, because I see it. Maybe in our closing, you can touch on this really quickly, but life does get challenging or tough, or there's tragedy, there's difficult times, and it seems like in the newer spirituality, however we want to put that part is taken out and is almost the shadow material looked at as something's wrong. There's something wrong with you, you're not doing it right, rather than how to persevere. What are the tools, what using your practice, your spiritual practice. So I think what you're saying is, just really invaluable.
Boy, you're absolutely ringing all my bells. Absolutely. My first spiritual teacher, this Richard Rose, the Zen master, people are always expecting him to give some koan to them or some special technique for meditating, or stand on your head and say this, a mantra or something, And he was always talking at the level of principles. And he would say the most important thing you can have on a spiritual life is commitment. You got to make a commitment. And he said, because the biggest problem is forgetfulness. He said, you get distracted, and he says the next thing you know, you wake up and get interested in spirituality, but then you get distracted, you fall back asleep again, and 20 years goes by, like Rip Van Winkle. He said, you wake up again, but this time you wake up screaming. He said, so you have to make a commitment. And I said to him, how do you make this commitment? And he said, well, I'll tell you. He said you need spiritual stones in your shoe that keep you from forgetting. And he said every religion on the face of the world has a same name for these stones you put in they're called sacrifices. He said the more you sacrifice, the more committed you become, and the more committed you become, the more easy it is to sacrifice. Anybody who has been on a diet in their life knows that after you've lost 20 pounds or so, it's a lot easier to not eat that potato chip. It's those first days when you're just getting, when you're sacrificing the potato chips or the hamburger that you want to eat, that's the hard time. Same with the gym. It's in the beginning, you make the sacrifice, you make the commitment to go to the gym, and it's really, really hard in the beginning. But the more, and all of a sudden, 3 months into it or 6 months into it, rather than working out for 30 minutes, you're working out for 45 minutes. It becomes easier to make a commitment to go even further, to go further, to go further. So commitment, it ends up being a virtuous cycle. And so, but this again, going back to just what you said, I'm just echoing another word what you said. When you talk about the hero's journey, what everybody wants to skip is the desert stage of the hero's journey. Yeah. The formation stage, the training stage, the 40 years that the Israelites spent wandering in the desert, wondering where their next meal was coming from. We don't want to suffer. We don't want to sacrifice. We've been schooled in our society now. Everything is instant gratification, and we're all pretty rich and even more than just psychologically fat. Most of us are physically fat. And so when somebody starts talking about the sacrifices we have to make, and that's why I get a little angry sometimes, because there's what I consider, some of the stuff, and I won't mention anybody by name or movements by age, to try to make everything simple. Just say this little mantra, or just do this, and just have this thought, have this positive thought. You don't have to change anything in your life. Nietzsche himself said, you have to go through the hour of one's own great self-contempt. My Zen teacher, Richard Rose, he was a very down-to-earth, to put it lightly. And again, I want to mention my book, Not Less Than Everything. There's a great portrait of him and me working with him. But he said, sometimes he said, I think the greatest motivation for a spiritual life there is is just getting tired of the BS and deciding to do something about it. And the most, the biggest BS is when you look in the mirror and you get tired of your own. You get tired of your own. I asked a psychologist one time who I was working with during a very difficult, which the second part of my book is all about my dark night of the soul. I broke my ankle skydiving, went into this terrible depression, 2 years of dark night of the soul, which ends up, by the way, with a cataclysmic spiritual experience. And after suffering with depression all my adult life, I haven't had a moment's depression in 25 years now after the spiritual experience I had. But I asked the psychologist that I was working with this time, I said, David, why does it have to be so hard? And he was filling out my credit card form, and he didn't even look at me. He said, because we insist on playing our games until the pain becomes so great we can't take it anymore. And this is absolutely the truth. We insist on playing our stupid, silly games until the pain becomes so great we can't take it anymore. And the ironic thing is that as a result of that, if you have a really, really good teacher, in my humble opinion, his job is to increase that pain so that you'll get surrender sooner. His job is not to put salve on you. Say, just say this mantra and get joy and peace. No, everything's wonderful and everything's great with you and me. And by the way, writing you a check on your way out. No.
Yeah.
His job is to point to you and say, listen, you're not living the way. Here's the contradiction. You say you love people, but then just like you said earlier, you say you love people on Sundays, but then you go out and cheat them on Tuesdays. What's that all about? You know, explain yourself. You know.
Yeah.
But when we get a good,
it all boils down to that self-inquiry you were talking about. It really does, and having the courage.
Absolutely.
The self-inquiry. Yeah.
If we have time, I'd like to tell you one more real quick story, and that was when I was down at the monastery, and I was mowing the lawn one day, and this brother who's now passed away came out to bring me some water, and Brother William, and I loved the man, but I didn't know that much about him. Anyway, we sat for a while under the shade, and he told me about going out into the woods. Like 20 years earlier, he'd built what they call as a hermitage. He lived as a hermit for 2 years in the woods. And so I was really fascinated. So I asked him questions about where he got his food and blah, 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 all these kinds of things, you know. Finally, I screwed up my courage, and I said, Brother William, did you get anything out of it? And I expected him to say, yeah, on Thursday, the Virgin Mary showed up and told me I was going to heaven or something. You know, I didn't know what I was expecting. And he just gradually, his hands were on it, his knees were on, elbows were on his knees, and he looked over at me and he said, I had to face myself. And I can't take the hair stood up on the back of my neck. He didn't say another word. We sat there together for the next 15 minutes in silence. And to me, that was one of the most flattering things anybody's ever done, because he must have thought that I would understand, that there was no other elaboration. There didn't need to be any elaboration. There didn't need to be any more than that. He didn't have to explain what he meant. And we just sat there, you know, like the spirit was in the air between us. I mean, that is the whole thing. That's all there is. You have to face yourself. Yeah. And it's a life
vulnerable
work.
And strong, right? For him to say that. I mean, wow, very powerful.
That's such a perfect way to put it. That's such by the way, consider that stolen. The next time I tell that story.
Yeah, please.
Vulnerable and strong. Vulnerable and strong.
Because, I mean, for him, you were looking up to him, for him to be that vulnerable, but not apologetic, doesn't have to go into story, trust that you understood. I mean, wow, that's pretty amazing.
You know, I had to face myself. And it's a very scary thing. I had to go through it myself, and it's a very frightening thing to have to do. And, you know, and that's why you have to really... when I finally had my spiritual experience and all the depression went away, and it took me a year to recover from it, and I was overcome with gratitude, and I was having these exaltations or ecstasy experience. Anyway, so I went back to that same psychologist to help me process the experience. And one day I was weeping in his office, but I was weeping from gratitude. And I said, David, there's nothing I could have done to deserve what God gave me. I said, it was all grace. It had to be all grace. Nobody could earn what God gave me, you know. Mm-hmm. And he looked at me after a moment and he said, yes, it is all grace, but you asked for it. You spent your entire life asking for it. He said, what happened to you is not what happens typically to an ordinary person on their way to the grocery store for a quart of milk. And I only have one thing. If you want cosmic consciousness, if you want enlightenment or nirvana or samadhi or whatever you want to call it, then you just got to ask for it. And your life has got to become one great, asking for it. Make your life that prayer. And that's and it will be answered. It will be answered, but you got to want it more than anything else. There's that old Zen story where the student asks this. I love this story. The Zen master, to tell him what he had to do to reach enlightenment, and the Zen master quietly walks him out into the middle of the stream. And when they get out in the middle of the stream, the master grabs the kid by the head and holds his head underwater for a full minute. And finally, he lets the kid up, and he's coughing and gasping for air. And he says, when you want the truth the way you wanted air just a moment ago, you'll get it instantly.
Woo!
You got to want it more than anything else without any reservations. And what you learn as you study yourself in this introspection that we're talking about is all that you're hedging all the time. It's kind of like the story from St. Augustine in the Confessions, where he says as he became converted, as he was gradually being converted, he was a big ladies' man. And he kept praying to God, God, make me celibate, but not yet.
Yeah, right.
God, give me enlightenment.
Yeah, but not yet. Let me tell you when I'm ready. Yeah, let me tell you when I'm ready.
You got it.
Right?
You got
right?
it.
Yeah. Let me just one more thing, one more cookie. Yeah, just one more. Oh, August. Okay, one more cookie, then I start my diet. Right.
Right.
Oh, this has been very inspiring and a lot of good, not just insight, but I think practical things that people can bring to their spiritual practice. Again, just to wrap it up, where people can find you, and then the book on Amazon. I'm sure some people have already gotten it. Not Less Than Everything, One Man's Quest for Spiritual Enlightenment. People can go to Amazon, get the hard copy, or you can get the electronic or Kindle also.
Right. Yeah, the Kindle version is right now for a very limited time. It's 99 cents. Next several weeks.
Okay, cool.
Weeks yet, 99 cents. And the hard copy is $29.99. But if you come to my website to learn more about me than you probably care to know, is at www.augustturak.com. That's August, just like the month, Turak, T as in Tom, U-R-A-K, that's one word, augustturak.com. You can also find the physical copy of Not Less Than Everything for 50% off. We're selling it for $15 on my website now as a special offer.
Okay, very cool.
And, of course, you can learn all about my other book, Business Secrets of the Trappist Monks and Brother John, and find my articles on Forbes and all kinds of other stuff on my website.
People can do a deep dive. They go to your site. Well, you're welcome back anytime. Thanks for taking time out of your life to share with us. We really appreciate it.
All right. I'd love to come back, because I tell you what, I do a lot of this kind of stuff, and you have asked great questions, and you have made wonderful comments, and I mean that from my bottom of my heart.
Thank you very much. Yeah, well, I've been absorbing a lot of what
you've been down
saying.
the road. You know your stuff.
Oh yeah. I've been down the road. And listen, I always tell people, look, if it was a pill or I would have already done it. Everybody, there's no magic pill or potion or mantra or affirmation. There is persistent effort involved. There is practice.
Absolutely.
There's work. All right,
Absolutely.
August, you take good care.
So God bless. God bless. And
God bless
I hope
too.
to come back sometime. I'd love to.
Love to have you back on. Just let us know anytime. Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, Soul Lights. Wow, I hope you took notes. I would re-listen. A lot of gems in this episode, a lot of confirmations, a lot of synchronicities, and a lot of good information. You know, you're hearing a lot of people when they come on, they're saying the same thing, that introspection, that self-inquiry is so, so important. Also, any questions, comments, guest suggestions, topic suggestions, please email awakeningspodcast@gmail.com. I'd love if you would subscribe and get the notifications to Soul Insights and Tarot on YouTube, and also Awakenings with Michele Meiche podcast on YouTube. Would love that, love that. Also, Patreon. If you want to do the mentoring, that's why I have these groups. That's why I do this for as many years, helping this community, you know, kind of started it, but it's everyone's community. Everyone's co-creating this because I do know the value of community, whether in person or online, and this is a community. If you want to dive deeper, you want more assistance, support, understanding of your soul path, your spiritual practice, esoteric knowledge, doctrine, discipline, if you will, spiritualism, you know, meditation, spirituality. If that's something that you're wanting consistent help in, Patreon is the way to go, and there's affordable tiers there, because I do believe in group. I do believe in mentoring and teaching. I'm where I am because I've had really good teachers in all aspects of my life, and whether through the counseling aspect, holistic health, my meditation teachers, my spirituality teachers, my metaphysical teachers, my hypnotherapy teachers, astrology all of them. We are, you know, I think we can only be as, not just as really good, but as, well, prolific and as helpful in our service as the teachers that we have. So I always, a lot of you hear me always saying, oh, this teacher said this, or this teacher said that, or Dr. Hahn, or Beverly Martin, or whomever it is. It's because I've had good teachers. Anyway, I wish you all a beautiful day, beautiful week. I hope to see all of you, connect with all of you next Wednesday. If you happen to be new to the podcast, we're here every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific time. Call-in number 347-539-5122. Keep that for your reference. There's information in the podcast episode description box as how to reach me, or information about the guest, information about the podcast. And as always, continue to shine your light, share your insights, and of course, keep awake.
Awakenings broadcasts every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific Time. Archive shows available on iTunes. For continued awakened conversations and insights, join the Awakenings group on Facebook. And check out Michele's blog at soulplayground.com. And keep awake.